What is happening, friends of CCP Podcasting? Welcome to a live taping of Beyond the Bell. I am Chris Page. This is going to be a fantastic episode. I have been waiting since we got it on the books to get this in and to make this happen. Was gonna be joined by Toddy tonight, but however, Mother Nature had other plans. As they say in the business, the show must go on, and indeed it shall. Sending positive vibes to Toddy. I hope your power gets cut on in short order. But before we get started today, I cannot wait. This has been one of those moments for me. I had the opportunity to stumble into House of Champions here on our platform just randomly and found out that it was in my own backyard. So, of course, had to take a trip. Uh, Went down, saw the product, found out who was attached to it, and then, of course, with wrestling being what it is and what we do on this channel, I knew several of the names that were attached for the coaching staff, and it just seemed like a fit after we've had so many of their talent come on our show that we get one of the guys behind it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Beyond the Bell, the one and only Coach K, Mr. Kekoa. How's it going, man? Welcome to the show.
What what an introduction, sir. I appreciate you having me on though. It's been overdue with how long that you guys have been covering the Hawk shows and having all my kids on, which I always appreciate, and I've told you that numerous times. It was long overdue to come on.
I'm glad that we could have you, and actually, truthfully, man, the thanks isn't to us. The thanks goes to you guys. I got to tell all the kids that come on, and again, I don't mean kids disrespectfully, because I know we got some folks in chat. What I mean by that is your talent that come in, the students that come in, they have nothing but high praises for what you guys have going on down there. I've seen it with my own eyes. I have been present where some of these moments have happened, maybe not physically there in the room, but have seen the clips. You guys are doing tremendous stuff, and it deserves to be seen. Number one, if it's not already being seen, and if we can throw it out there to some of our audience, and they are able to follow along with it, that's a win.
Mhm. No, I agree. It's becoming something that I keep reminding them as well, as all the students, is we're having the time of our life, like doing these shows. And because, like, as you've talked about, like a lot of these like moments, memories, like things that we're creating, behind the curtain, in front of the curtain, like a lot of these are uh some are fabricated in the sense of, like, we did this on purpose to get a natural reaction, but like some of them are just like, man, these were like on the call, on the fly type of decisions that were made. And then you just see the genuine reaction from the other members, and a great example of that I tell them is, like, they're allowed to react, like they're allowed to be, in the moment, even though they might
Hmm.
just be security, like standing in the background and stuff like that. I go, it's kind of like when you're on a plane. I'm like, everybody's been on a plane at some point, and I said, the first time that you ever go through turbulence, the first person that you look at is the flight attendant. If the flight attendant's eyes start going like this, or they start gripping, or you know what I mean, if they look in fear or scared or nervous in that moment, then you get scared. I said, it's the same thing. I said, if you react genuinely to things that as we're doing it, then the audience members are going to see that also, and they're going to be like, wow, like this is insane, like, did you see that guy? And like, he's part of the school, and like he reacted that way. So it's great that we can get those reactions, because a lot of the times too, I don't tell the kids what everything that's happening. Like, I'll keep a lot of things close to the chest, and there might only be one or two people that know exactly what's happening, just so that we can get more natural reactions around the building. So it's we're having the time of our life. Like that, I can't undersell that by any means.
I talked to Ivy Mercer not too long after she won the women's championship, first ever HOC women's champion, and she disclosed to us on that show that was not the finish. They didn't tell me.
No.
And being in the room when that match happened and to feel that, I mean, it was electric. It's the only way I can describe it. It was electric. Her family was present. It's a moment, man. It's a moment. And again, I see so much wrestling from all over the world on a weekly basis. Every continent. I don't miss a whole lot. When you see the genuine moments that actually happen, and they're very few and far between with all the wrestling, you know that they're real. and you know that it is legitimate. And being there for
Mm.
that, for her specifically, it was insane. The same thing with Max
Yeah.
Danziger and so many other kids. But we'll get to HOC. I promise. I promise we will. Oh, and
Yeah.
I could totally divert the whole conversation there, to be fair. But before we get too deep, I want to say welcome everybody in chat. We see you. Uh, Violence Achieved, Matthew Ennis. Welcome to the show. Rachel does
That's one
things.
person we don't see.
Uh, okay. I mean, you're the coach, man. If you say we don't see him, then we don't see him. Uh, um,
I try not to see him, and I see him 3 days a week. You know what I
I,
mean? Like, I,
I,
I see enough of him.
I
Saw
get
him earlier today. Why do I need to see him again?
facts. You have to deal with him way more than I do, and that deserves a pat on the back all in its own right. I Before we get too deep into the wrestling side of the equation, let me start by this. You had a health issue that's come up, and I wanted you to take a moment to kind of talk about that, explain where we're at with that. I know where we're at with it. I've seen the updates, but
Mm.
for those who may not be aware, you got hit with some kind of bad news, and you turned
Mm.
that negative into a positive. So enlighten us.
Yeah, it kind of started a couple months ago. Um, I have always been somebody that follows just my health overall and everything of that sort. So I've been on testosterone treatment for almost a year now. Well, with that treatment, I'm under doctor advisory. So then I have to get blood work every couple months to make sure that everything is good to go, blah, blah, blah. So I'm doing blood work, I'm doing urine tests, just to make sure that I'm all healthy. Well, one of my urine tests came back, and that doctor specifically was like, "Hey, there's a lot of protein in your urine." I was like, or excuse me, he had suggested for me to go follow up with my primary. So I called my primary, and I was like, "Yeah, this is what they said," and they got me in like the next morning. So I went, and they were looking at my results from March, and they were like, "Yeah, it's pretty high." And I was like, "Well, how high are we talking?" And they're like, "Well, to give you an understanding of your situation, protein in the urine can be normal. If it's between 0 and 30, that's normal. If it's above 300, um, you have to go see a specialist. You're at 1500." And I went, "Oh." I was like, "All right, that's not good." And then he goes, "How soon can you take another test?" He's like, "We can take this test here." He goes, "But I need you to take more tests because we need to really know what's going on with you." He goes, "Just to let you know, I only see these types of numbers once every 6, 7 years." He's like, "This isn't like an everyday thing." And I said, "Yeah, like if I can take another test today, like, of course." So I take a urine test there, and then he scheduled me for more blood work and everything. I took another one. My protein level's at 2400. So it had gone up since March. And like that was, very alarming. So he's like, "Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. At this point, I have to send you to a urologist. We have to get scans and see what's going on with your bladder, see what everything that's there. I have to schedule you with a nephrologist, which is a kidney doctor. We have to rule out XYZ." And then all of a sudden he was like, "And we have to rule out cancer at this point." And I was just like, well, Christ, like that's a load, like it out of nowhere, and I'm 37 years old. I've always taken care of myself, and just to hear that is pretty insane. And then you start thinking like, man, well, I got girls, I got this, I got that. Like that's such a heavy word, to be thrown at you. Um, long story short, like I kept following everything that was being asked of me. Eventually, I was diagnosed with a kidney disease called nephropathy. It's a genetic disease. It affects young Asian males. I'm part Chinese as well, not just Hawaiian. So that's where that falls under. I don't really have a family history of it, so it's pretty crazy that it just came out of nowhere for me. Like I was the bingo, you get it type
Hmm.
thing. But, um, so at this point, there's a lot more to go. I have to get some specialty treatment to kind of get my kidney under control at this point because there's some inflation, there's some scarring, so on and so forth. So, um, it could have been a lot worse. So it is very positive. Um, It's something that I can live with the rest of my life. It's something that's not going to restrict me from wrestling. So a lot of positives. And the other positive that, since you had touched on it, was in the post that I had made that I announced what was going on with me. It was another aspect of like, hey guys, like I don't have any symptoms. I'm not in pain. I'm not in discomfort. There was nothing alarming that made me, go and get this done. So if you haven't been to the doctor and you're around my age, like just go get checked. Like just go do a follow up, go do a urine and blood test, just go get checked out. And then Pride of Wrestling, which was the next company that I wrestled for, like I think at least 6 or 7 people came up to me and was like, I made a doctor's appointment because of your post. And I was like, good. You know what I mean? Like just more positivity out of a negative situation. But I'm just glad again, like we're on the lighter side of things. Like, yeah, it sucks, but I know how bad it could have been. So I'm blessed to be on this side.
I think that think it's fantastic news that you take it the way that you've taken it, and you found some silver lining, because that's critical. That's huge. Not only did you find some
Mhm.
silver lining, other people are now going to get themselves checked out that may not have. Whether they're clean or there's something comes back to them, they wouldn't have known if they didn't go out and check. I'm glad to know that your mindset is where it needs to be. I knew that got a long way to go. Got a chat going crazy for you right now. Love Coach K. Actually, Ennis offered up his kidney if you needed it. So there's that if you want to take that from him, but I don't know how.
I mean, I'll take it and see what I can get for it on Facebook Market if he's just giving up a kidney. Like I don't have to take it.
That's a
I
good
don't know if
point.
his is better than mine, but
It's a very good point, man. If you want to help out along the way, is it all right if I plug the GoFundMe? If you want to donate and
yeah.
if you can donate, everything is located. It's on the screen right there, guys. Keiko has got everything listed on his link tree. It's linktr.ee/Keiko Pro. You can find the links for everything, not just for the GoFundMe. If you want to contribute there, merchandise stuff is there. Anything and everything Keikoa is there from House of Champions all the way down. I checked it out and it's like I don't have enough tabs on my link tree. I need to catch up with this guy because everything is
Yeah.
there, literally. I appreciate you sharing with us about that, and now that we can move past it and get into some wrestling. And that's the
Mhm.
passion of everybody who follows this channel. I always like to start at the top. Where does wrestling come into your life, man? What drew you into pro wrestling?
Typical answer that most people I think have. They started at a young age. My mom says I was 3, which I believe her. My first cognizant memory of wrestling in general wasn't until I was 7. It was the 1993 Royal Rumble for some reason. Why? Don't know. That's the one that's in there. And I had always been a fan of wrestling, and I had always told people that I was going to be a wrestler when I grew up. Um, and at one point during high school, it's not that I didn't want to go down that route anymore, but I was getting pulled in different directions, so I just wasn't sure if that was the path that I was going to go down. I played a lot of sports in high school, so I wasn't sure what aspect I was going to follow. But then it wasn't until the first time that I ever got inside a wrestling ring. I was at a gentleman's pro wrestling memorabilia store called Carson's Pro Wrestling World. It was on 13th and Tillman in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where actually the Samoans used to train at one point. And they were training there at this point when I went there, and he was like, have you ever seen a wrestling ring? And I was like, yeah, like WWE when I've gone. And he brings me to the back of the shop, and he turns the lights on, and there's the ring, there's the Samoans ring, and he was like, you want to get in? And I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. So I get in, I touch the rope, and I went, that's it, that's all I need. And it was very weird. I don't know, like I've told that story 100 times. It's something about like I just got in there, touched the rope, and then my mind was made up, and it's been. And that was my I think my junior year of high school. That was pretty much it.
Nope, I 100%. I get it, 1,000%, because that's actually how it started for me. I was in high school and they had a show coming through our gymnasium. And after the show, of course, I think like Hector Guerrero was one of the names that was on.
Mm,
Uh, the $20, get in the ring, take a picture. Of course, who wasn't gonna pay $20 to get in the ring, take a picture?
yeah.
That was where I stepped in, and I went, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing here. Not the promoter, the guy
Yeah.
who owned the company was right there. Was ringside. Let me talk to you. That's how it rolled for me. So I get it. Uh, Let me go over to the chat real quick. Violence Achieved 81 swears they're not Matthew Ennis, that they're a fan of his. We find that very sus. But they did ask, who are some of your favorite wrestlers growing up?
I don't know if I want to answer that question because I feel like this is a little suspicious. I mean, if it was Matthew Ennis, you know what? Maybe I'll throw this out there. If it was Matthew Ennis, it wouldn't be, Matthew Ennis pro. It would probably say Violence VAI because he's in a new tag team now.
Yes, I
So I
saw.
feel like the Instagram handles, the Twitter handles, all of that would already be changed. But maybe it's not him. But my favorites growing up, I loved a plethora of wrestlers. Sean was number one. Also found out that me and Sean have the same birthday, so that was always cool. Um, and then I loved Bret Hart. I loved it again. A lot of them, the Nasty Boys. I loved the Natural Disasters. I loved Tatanka. I loved all of those guys. Those early '90s guys, I all loved. It wasn't until I got into wrestling then my favorites started to broaden because then I had a coach that was like, go study this, go study that. So then, of course, Steamboat came on, and that's where a lot of my we'll say shades of the great Steamboat come in when someone's on commentary. Um, of course, Ric Flair, another great, Dusty. So a lot of the old school guys started coming in because then I understood the business a little bit more. So then when I watched that era, then I could kind of put it together and enjoy it a little and appreciate it more.
Well, that's actually a good segue to kind of where I was going to go next. You talked about when you got into training, the horizons broadened a little bit, and you got into figuring this out.
Mhm.
Where does that cross your path, and what's that look like for you when you said, "Okay, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to try." Because getting into training or finding a place to train is different for everybody. What did your process look like? How did you get attached to it?
So I was just very fortunate, and I have been basically my whole life, thankfully. So because his name was Bud, but Bud Carson, the guy that had the memorabilia shop, um, because the Samoans moved out of his building, he was losing that income because essentially he was probably renting it out, to the Samoans, and when they were paying him monthly or whatever.
Hmm.
So at that point, when he lost that income, it was like, okay, well, I have to supplement this. So he was like, I'm going to start my own wrestling school. Well, he already knew me, and he already knew that I was an athletic kid and everything of that sort. He knew I loved wrestling, so he contacted me and he's like, I'm about to open up a wrestling school. Um, do you want to sign up? And the funny part is, so this was around my senior year then. Like I was almost graduating at this point, and around that time, I had my high school sweetheart at the time when we were getting close, my dad had said like, "Hey, do you guys want to like take a cruise together? Like, do you guys want to come with, me and your stepmom? We'll go on a cruise as like a graduation present or something like that." Well, my girlfriend at the time, she hated cruises. So I said, "Hey, do you mind just giving me X amount of dollars, like whatever the ticket was going to cost for us, and then we'll just use that money to just go take our own little trip. Is that cool?" So he gave me $500. And I was like, "Okay, cool. Now I got $500." Well, then when Bud called me and he's like, "Hey, I want to start a wrestling school." He's like, "Do you want to join?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't really have any money." He goes, "Well, how much money do you got for like a down payment? And then we can work out like monthly payments." He's like, "How much you got?" I'm like, "I have $500." he goes he goes, "That works for me." So then I called my girlfriend the next call. As soon as I hung up, I was like, "We're not going on vacation anymore." I was like, "I just used it for wrestling school." And she was like, "I get it, I understand." So then I was off and running from there.
I mean, at least she was understanding of it, right? Like,
She was, and you know a lot of credit to her because most girls especially at that age, like, they wouldn't have understood.
oh no, no, no doubt. Real quick, Steve O from Lisbon, Portugal, dropping in. Says it's 1:20 in the morning over there. Throwing a shout out your way, Coach K. and literally called it out. Oh, snap. It's HOC Kekoa. Yes, sir. Live and in living color. There he is.
Man, at 1:20 in the morning, man, that's um
Dedication.
determination to be on. Yeah, dedication. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. We've made friends literally everywhere. It's great. They come in and just show up at
Awesome.
random times. When you were moving and shaking through this thing, what were some of the difficult things that you had to, or challenges, I should say, that you encountered when you were getting situated and going through some of the training, and how did you overcome it?
Training was just tough physically for us. I tell these kids, like training was a lot different in my day, and then even more different than the generations before us, and how awful it was. So I'm like, y'all are like spoon fed at this point because we're trying to fuel your passion, and a lot of those guys not necessarily weren't trying to fuel the passion, but at that point, 2006 and even before, the business was a lot more protected, and it's like we only want people in this business that are gonna stick around. Now it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more broad of a spectrum of like who is coming in, which is a whole other conversation. But um, it was over 100 degrees during the summer. No air conditioning. Well, we had an air conditioner. Coach never turned it on, so we would always have to do about an hour and a half of cardio before we even started. And if we got through cardio, then we were allowed to get into the ring. So it was just tough physically. As far as like any hurdles that I faced, again, I was lucky. Like wrestling came kind of easy to me. Like I got trained in 6 months, and there I went. You know what I mean? Like I was on my way through the indies. Um, but I think the biggest thing or hurdle that I had to get over was just being patient. Um, because I knew that I could do it. And one of the things that I was being held back on, and I remember this vividly. My coach might not remember anymore, but he's still a good buddy of mine. So maybe if I bring it up, he'll be like, "Nah, I never did that." But regardless, we're cool. Um, I because again, I'm paying for my school, like I have to go work. Well, I remember like 1 or 2 days of the week, I would always come about an hour late to practice every single day because I'm like, this is my job that's paying the school. So like I'm gonna be late. Otherwise, I can't pay for the school. And I remember around that time that I was ready to start working the indies, he was giving opportunities to other students only because I was being late, and he was like, Chris is on time, this I forget what his real name was, but Mars is on time, like they're gonna get the opportunities first, and I'm like, I don't choose to be late. I have to be late. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
that was just again a battle that a 19-year-old kid is like, you'll get there. It's okay. You might not agree with the decision, but you'll get there at some point. And I did. They got me on the same shows that the other kids got on. I was just a little bit behind them. That's all. It wasn't the end of the world. Like there wasn't a deadline date, but nobody also was telling me that at the time. No one was giving me like another perspective. No one had their arm around me, you know, to help and guide me and to make me look at things in a perspective. It was just a 19-year-old kid on his own trying to figure things out, and that was tough. Like that was definitely a tough battle for me.
I'm glad you fought through it because it's led you down the path now, and you said it, you've taken the Indies by storm, and you started up north, and you've worked your way down here to Florida. What did it look like for you breaking in? Having your debut. What's that look like for you, and what did the scene look like where you when you broke in, and as you kind of worked your way down to Florida?
Uh, it was tough because I kind of looked like we joke about it at the school. I looked like Destin Joanno. I was a skinny kid. I was a small kid. Like and I'm 19 years old. Like I didn't you know mold into my adult body yet by any means. Um, so a lot of squash matches, a lot of places that are like, you know, unfortunately, that's the spot that we have for you. But I think that my work and my determination and how I wanted to stand out, um, separated myself from the other guys that might have still been my size as well. Maybe that's just my belief. Because sooner or later I got opportunities, and sooner or later different companies started putting me over. And even though I was still relatively small, like I was getting pushed for titles, and I was getting pushed in different companies. So I believe that that's just what persevered overall. I just had to show that I wanted to be there and that I wanted it, and I had to keep working, and that was showing up early in my suit that I got from the Salvation Army that I paid $10 for because I couldn't afford anything else. Doing ring crew in my suit because I had no other clothes. Um, and then doing the show, taking the ring down in my suit, driving everywhere. Like I just wanted it, you know. That's it.
Yeah. I well, yeah, it sounds like such a simple concept, but I think today, like, it gets skewed a little bit because I think and maybe this may get me some heat. I think it's a little bit easier today, obviously, than it was back in the day, in the transitions of getting a break, getting started, making it happen. Like, I 1000% get it, and I think that that's what separates is having that determination to succeed. You're in a position to where you can fucking listen to these people and accept the fact that this is where they have you, or you can maybe not do that and work
Mhm.
on yourself and work on what you can do to separate yourself from those that are around you, essentially, which is exactly what you've done. And it
Mhm.
worked you into a much higher position on any card, I would imagine. Don't get me wrong. With my day, like I was a mid to upper card guy, but I was from the Alabama scene, brother. That's not saying a whole lot in '99. It's not, and I get it,
Mhm.
and I understand that. But to see coming in on a lower end, like body wise, and having to bulk yourself up to get into a spot to where someone may or may not take you quote unquote seriously. How does that work, and what's that process for you as you're growing into your body, you're taking control, and getting yourself into quote unquote game shape?
It wasn't until I was 9 years in that people were just giving me the right advice. Nobody was giving me advice. And maybe I wasn't asking for it. I don't know. It was too long ago, for me to answer that question.
Hmm.
But the thing that I tell these kids all the time is like me, Bobby, Nick, or Jamie Stanley, whatever you know him as, like we're all here to help and to guide you forever. Like if you're one of our kids, we're here forever. You're our kid. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to do this alone like I did, like Bobby probably did. Um But yeah, like I was told like, yeah, bulk up, this or that or whatever. But it wasn't until I got to Ring of Honor and I was trying out for them and they were interested, but my character at the time was Kekoa the Flying Hawaiian, and I was a generic babyface who wore a Hawaiian shirt and threw the lays out and just like, yeah, I was like, oh, this is white meat babyface. Um and it wasn't until I got there that they're like, yeah, we need more from your character. Like you have natural history in you. We need more of it. And I was like, yeah, they're right. And then it was also around that time too that another gentleman named John Trosky, who was starting a company in Hazleton, Pennsylvania called The Sanctuary, um, when he started, he's like, Keikoa the Flying Hawaiian is a mid card character. I don't see Keikoa the Flying Hawaiian being a main eventer, even though I had already won multiple titles in other companies. And that's another example that I tell these kids all the time. I'm like, you could be the head cook of a Burger King doesn't mean you know how to cook. You know what I mean? Like you have to keep growing. Like you have to keep doing things. And so they were all right. And around that time, I tore my ACL, which was a blessing. Um, and then I was able to just revamp and just recreate myself. And that's where my heel character, the Warrior King, came about because I was basing a character off of the bloodline of King Kamehameha, who's the original king of Hawaii. I was like, okay, so now I'm royalty, I'm this and that, blah 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 blah. not a generic king by any means, but that's where like my big, war helmet for anybody that's been following my career for a long time. Like that's where my helmet came from, the robe and everything. But and also I wanted to be heel because I'm like I've been babyface for 9 years, so I'm like naturally like it made sense to me to switch everything. And then Trotsky saw that and was like, "That's my main eventer." So then I started getting booked there, and then I was about to go back to Ring of Honor, but then Ring of Honor was doing like this whole revamp and everything like that, and just different processes, and then like that, I never went back to there to try to work things out because then also around that time, every company that loved me as a babyface, even though I was turning heel, they were like, "Well, we kind of like you as a good guy. Like, we kind of need you to go back to that." And I was like, "I already invested all of this money. Like, my helmet was $500, the robe was another 300, the boots were another 300, like the gear was another 300. Like, brother, I just spent all this to be a heel. Like, I'm not going to go back to being a babyface." But it was just an overwhelming amount of like, we really need you to be a good babyface because like there's not many good baby faces in the business in general. Not just the independents in general. There's not a lot of good baby faces. Um, so then that's how I had to kind of revamp. I'm like, all right, well, how can I use the things that I've already bought and then revamp it into a baby face? So then that's how Hawaiian Warrior came about. So it was just it was a process,
Mm-hmm.
to get through all that. You know what I mean? But it
Yeah.
it but it got there. But that's the thing I tell these kids all the time also. I'm like, when they come to me with an idea and then we try to work on it together, or I might just completely crap on it when they first come to me and then they feel defeated. I'm like, be happy that I'm crapping on your idea because if I don't, your generic babyface Kekoa the Flying Hawaiian, and then 9 years into your career, someone goes, "Your gimmick is generic," and you go, "Why didn't anyone tell me that?" Like I'm saving you 9 years of work and frustration of like, why am I not getting more? And then someone finally telling you this is why, and you go, "Why didn't someone tell me this 9 years ago?" I'm doing that. Like I'm saving you from that. But kids don't know that because they've never gone through the hard work yet. They just come out of those meetings defeated. And I'm like, that's for a good reason, but they don't know that. That's another just tough aspect overall.
I I now see that I don't necessarily get because I'm not a coach, but I can totally feel where you're coming from because again, these kids, it's a new generation. I am 42, I'm 43 in September. So like seeing different perspectives and trying to get this younger generation, it's a challenge for me. And I'm like, I like to keep it simple, keep it simple, stupid. That's what they should tell us. Keep it fucking simple. Uh, with the HOC, like I mean, I know that you've done so much work across the independent scene. You've trailblazed and worked your way into the House of Champions, which I'm really really curious about because now I got you here. I don't have the students. I don't have the kids.
Mhm.
I've got one of the
Yeah.
one of the cooks in the kitchen, and I,
Head chef.
head chef. There you go.
Head chef,
How
maybe.
how does this come about? I again stumble into House of Champions basically through YouTube, and for
Mm,
me, it was a Monday night. I didn't have a Monday night show planned, which is our where we watch a full indie. Regardless, usually it's a dart at the map and whatever pops pops. It happened to be one of the 2 hour shows, and I want to say it was last
has to be
year's
legacy then.
Legacy. It was.
Yeah, that was our
It
only 2 hour show.
it was. It was Legacy. Uh,
At least I
uh,
think so. I could be wrong.
it was definitely Legacy. That was for sure
All
the
right.
show. That was the first show that I stumbled across. Uh, and I instantly fall in love with the product. I see these guys, and I find out as we're watching it, it's a student show. Didn't know it was a student show until literally one of the announcers said,
Yeah.
"Oh, and by the way, this is such and such second match." Wait, what? That's their second match? You see where
Yeah.
I'm going with this. So how does House of Champions come
Yes.
up? What's the concept? How do you and Jamie and Renee Bobby? How do you guys get together? What's that look like to get this place put together?
Fate, fate. That's what it was. Um, I mean, my whole career is just fate. Everything happens for a reason. That would be probably the title of my book, or I'd have to come up with another one because I'm sure that title's been taken. But I met Nick, Mr. Jamie Stanley, in catering at WWE in 2020. I was still in Pennsylvania. He had already moved down here. I had gotten booked during the pandemic in August of 2020, and I just met him in catering. Started shooting the shit with him. Very nice guy. And at one point, I was just like, yeah, I'm thinking about moving down here. I'm like, I'm not sure. Like, I've always wanted to live in Florida. I'm not really sure. And he's like, do it. He's like, I just did. And I was like, all right, well, hold on. I was like, I have a lot to think about. I have a lot going on back in Pennsylvania. And how it then furthered was at one point, because the performance center was being used to tape, um, all of the shows, nobody had a place to go train to stay in shape during the pandemic because obviously, like, we had to, social distance and all of the other thing.
Hmm.
So then everyone was training over at Devon Dudley's school, which was basically down the road from Full Sail. And I had gotten invited because I was friends with, someone from the roster. And then I find myself training with everyone on the roster, basically, like a who's who of the roster. I'm talking Bailey, Sasha, Ricochet, Keith Lee, like
Hmm.
the list goes on. Asuka, the list goes on. And then there's me. And I'm like, who the fuck let me in? Like,
Right.
how did that happen? But that was then where like the snowball effect started of like, okay, well, I met Nick, told me I should move. Well, now I'm looking at this. All of these people live here. All of these people live in Florida because at some point they had to move here for NXT. If I move to Florida, I have access to them and I can just train with the best in the world whenever I want at any point. If I'm going to be the best version of myself, I need to train with the best, right? And I was living in the Poconos of Pennsylvania at the time. I was more than 3 hours from anybody that was close to the amount of experience that I've had. It was getting so bad that I still remember around that time, it was when like WWE legends were doing like FaceTime calls on like Cameo or something like that for money, like a 10-minute call with Bret Hart. And my thought process was, I wonder if I can book Bret Hart to watch like a 5-minute match and just give me critique because I don't have anyone here to learn from. Like, I was so determined to figure that out. But then my thought was like, but if I'm here, I don't have that problem. So then that's how that came about. Then I called my wife and I'm like, I think it's time to move. And she was like, all right, bet, let's move. So thought about that in August of 2020, sold the house in December of that same year. I had a wrestling school, closed it, quit my job. My wife was pregnant at the time. She was like 6 months pregnant at the time. So we had to wait until she gave birth. And then I had to give her like a couple weeks to obviously recover. And then we packed up and left. And then we came down here and then I met up with Jamie and we obviously stayed friends, but it wasn't until then he was like, yeah, I'm thinking about opening up a gym. And I thought he meant like a mom and pop gym because like brother's jacked, right?
Hmm.
So I was like, oh man, that's cool. And he goes, yeah, I want to like put a wrestling ring in it, I think. And he starts asking me questions about my ring that I had a 20-foot ring that I was renting out up north, and a bunch of other stuff that I was renting out for companies. And he keeps asking me all these questions. I was like, brother, if you need a ring, just ask me. I'm like, I'll put my ring in your school. Like, I don't gotta buy another ring. Like, save yourself the money. So he's like, oh, cool. And then out of nowhere, he's like, hey, we're looking at buildings. And I was like, oh, cool. I was like, oh, this is starting to be a real thing. So now I'm thinking like maybe in a couple years this will be a thing. And then he goes, yeah, we secured the building. We're moving in like 3 months or something like that. And I was like, this is insane. Like it happened like that.
Hmm.
Um, so then you got to start thinking about coaching. I go like, all right, well, who's going to coach? And I even asked him that. I said, who's going to be your head coach? And he goes, I think we're leaning towards Thomas Latimer, Mr. NWA, champion currently. Um, but I don't know if like it was decided at that point. I never went back and asked them. I don't know if it was decided at that point that they were going to go with Tom. I know they had a good relationship with him, and obviously, like Tom's phenomenal. Um, but I remember going over to Nick and Renee's, and he was asking me a lot of questions on how I ran my school. And then I left there, and I was like, I wonder if that was his interview, or if he was just shooting the shit with me. And then we circled back one day, and then he offered me the position. I said, "Well, what happened to Tom?" And he just goes, "I just don't think that Tom is going to be able to devote the amount of time that I think that you'll be able to devote to the Hawk." He's like, "I think you'll be all the way in." Not that Tom wouldn't, but again, just how busy he is, or whatever the case is, whatever else he had going on at the time. He's like, "I think you can devote a lot more um, time and effort into what we're trying to do here." And that's how the Hawk was created, because Nick and Renee wanted to change the game. They wanted to offer something to the independents that has never been offered before. And just fate and catering brought me and Nick
Hey,
together. And
I
that's how it happened.
I uh, I love chance encounters, right? Because
Mhm.
that's how this thing started. And to see where it's come and how quickly it's getting there is something that is tremendous to sit back and see. Um,
And I'll even tell you, I don't mean to rake your eyes, as I say. Since you love chance stories, I'll even go back, since we've already talked about it, about the sanctuary,
okay.
right? Because the sanctuary had started, they wouldn't book me. Well, if it wasn't for me tearing my ACL, I wouldn't have revamped my character. If I didn't revamp my character, the Sanctuary wouldn't have booked me. Because I got booked by the Sanctuary, I'm working a show and I'm watching a women's five-way, six-way, or something like that. And it was one of the most god-awful matches that I've ever seen. It was terrible. And I saw one of the girls in that match sulking in the corner of the locker room afterwards. And I went, man, she's probably so defeated on how bad that match went. I'm gonna go cheer her up. That's my wife.
What? That's
That's my wife.
that's wild. I love it. I love it, man.
Yeah,
We've had
everything happens for a reason.
it does. It truly does. And I'm a firm believer that uh people are your lives intersect with people for a reason. There's a reason why this conversation's happening. There's a bigger reason why.
Mhm.
There's a lot more that we don't know why it happens, but it
Correct.
does. And in this case, I've had the opportunity to sit down and talk to a lot of the students that have come through and that are still at the Hawk. And we've talked about how you guys create moments for these kids. I've gone on record saying it numerous times that that is something that you're not just you're creating something that's going to last a lifetime. And what I will jump on board with and scream from the rooftops is something that you touched on earlier when it comes to how you're training these guys and how you would tell them, hey, listen, this sucks, but this is what you could probably do to straighten this out because you didn't have that. You're giving them something that you
Mhm.
didn't have, and you're giving them an opportunity to pick the brains of some of the best to sit down and make this happen to make whatever work for these kids. It is something that is come out of each and every one of their mouths. When you are getting in here and you're deciding on the student aspect and what's attainable versus what's not attainable, I would imagine that y'all blew that out of the water pretty quickly because it seems like, and I don't know, I just know what I've seen. It seems like the Hawk has a large group of students that just seems to be getting bigger and bigger and larger and larger. I see the posts going out on social media. It seems like every other day there's a new student, um,
More,
or more.
more every time. More. That's all I post. I share it. And I go more. There's more, because then it's like the movie quote. More. you know.
Did you guys think that this thing would blossom as quickly as it has?
I'll say no, and I'm not saying no because I didn't believe in the Hawk. I just there's a side of the business that I don't have experience with, and I think that's the main reason why I've always said, like, that's what I needed when I was running my school. I know how to coach. I know what's right. I know what's wrong. I know all of those aspects, but I didn't have time to do marketing. I didn't have time to do the business side of it. Like, I don't. I don't have time for that stuff, and I don't have a lot of experience in that aspect. That's where Renee comes in. Like Renee is the genius of the aspect of the business side of it, of what we need or how we should be doing things, so on and so forth. So it's not necessarily that I didn't again believe in the Hawk. It was more or less like I didn't know how well we were going to do. And I'll be honest, and I've told Nick and Renee this, and they always pick on me for it because they're like, you're I'm my worst fan when it comes to my reputation or like my respect level. I don't know whatever you want to call it, but when they were choosing me as the coach, I asked like, "Are you sure?" Because like I'm not a name, like I'm nobody in this business. If I walk down the street, no one knows who the hell I am. You know, if I go to my local mall, a couple people might know who I am, but like I'm a nobody. And they were like, I think you're being a little too hard on yourself. So they believed in me, and I believed in them. You know, and I think that's all we needed was just I got your back if you got mine, and let's just do this thing together and let's kill it. And I think the success, you know, speaks for itself because you know we have 50. Well, I think we were about at 60 members for the wrestling school a couple like last week or something like that, and we had a couple kids drop off. But either way, 50, 60 kids for a wrestling school is like unheard of. Um, you know, so we're proving that you know maybe we didn't need that. So they're proving themselves right, and and
Well,
we're just blessed. That's all I can say.
I don't think in your case, I don't think it has to do with being a quote unquote name or not being a quote unquote name. I think it has everything to do with how you treat people and how
Mhm.
you handle situations. It's just what I see. I don't
Yeah.
I think that, and based on the conversations that I've had with a lot of the students, man, you impact their lives in ways all of you do. You, Renee, Jamie Stanley, Bobby Fitch, you all impact these kids' lives in such a positive manner, in such a positive way. Like when I knew that there was something special going on with the HOC when I saw it for the first time and found out that it was a student show. And while, yeah, you know, like I tell anybody, it's not the cleanest thing that you're going to see, but if you expected it to be clean in their students, you don't know what the fuck you're watching, and you probably need to go watch something else. But if you want to watch and you want to see where people can grow and where they can improve, this is exactly what you want to see. If you want to see where the future starts, that's this right
Mhm.
here, because uh, it truly is an investment into the future of professional wrestling.
And that's I mean, you said it best. If you know what you're looking for, then you can recognize it. And that's why my inbox is full of wrestlers that want to come work for a student show.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's names uh, that have told me, or and when I say names, as in people that have that are highly respected in this business that are not cheap by any means. I'm not talking about former WWE guys by any means. I'm just talking about people that are making waves on the independents. I have those guys that are hitting me up and being like, "Hey, can you when can I get on a Hawk show? Don't worry about paying me. I just want to come work. I either want to come work for me or just because they see what we're doing." And I don't realize like how far that that riptide effect goes. Again, I would if I was on the outside perspective looking at that and being like, damn, like that's insane. Like look at the camera work, the production value that they're doing. Like they're working with 3 different cameras. Man, like if I was a wrestler, 5 to 10 years in this business and I wasn't signed yet, to me, like that would be a company, that I would want to go work for. And we're not a company. We're we're a wrestling school. We're not a company. So I have to tell a lot of these guys like other like we book members, like we don't really book a lot of outside talent. It's very few and far between if we ever use somebody that's outside. So but again, outside perspective, if you know what you're looking for, you're going to see the value of what the Hawk is doing and you're going to go, man, I would get better there to get ready for the next level. And now my kids that are greenlit, that are graduated, are now going out onto the independents, are starting to realize like where's the camera? And you go, yeah, like they might not have one. Like they might
Yeah.
not have one. You know what I mean? It goes on and on about like all of that stuff that you're so used to that doesn't exist outside these walls. Like we have a script. You got a copy of a script that don't exist. So a lot of times you have no idea who you're facing until you get to the building. Um, we run off segment times. It doesn't exist. Everyone else does bell to bell, and that's why their shows are 4 hours long and 14 matches deep. Like it doesn't exist. Like they
Mm-hmm.
don't know that, and when they go there, they're blown away by this. They're like, why are we doing things like this? And I go, I don't know, and that's why we're doing it the way things are supposed to be.
We are taking everything that is fucked up and that has been wrong with the way we were brought up, and we're fixing it,
Yes,
guys. One day at a
yes,
time, one show at a
but they
time.
don't know that, and that's like why I get so giddy about it because when they experience, I go like, yeah, remember that time I told you? Like it's insane out there. It's not great. It sucks. It really does.
It's one.
I've already said if I only do the Hawk student shows for the rest of my career, I'm golden. Like I'm
Uh,
fine. Like I will die happy. I'm good. I'll ride off into the sunset with
I
what we're doing here.
I'm telling you, man. Whatever again the secret sauce with the Hawk is great coaching, and genuinely you care, and it's so easy to you. I mean, I going back to 99 2000, promoters were shady. Some of the companies were
Mm-hmm.
very seedy and just it was a weird place to be in some situations. So when I see what I feel like is it's doing it right, then I'm like, fuck yeah. Like I tell people to this day, guys that come and talk to us, whether from here in the States and all over, if you're ever here, you're in the area, you need to go check these guys out. These guys being the Hawk. They're doing it right. Like I when I walked into the facility for the first time and saw it with my own eyes and got to feel the crowd, and it was a student show. Uh, it was not. And then I came back literally. The next month was a PLE. I know where I'll be. I'm gonna come back and check this out. The environment is infectious, is the way I've called it, in a positive way. The energy level is a positive energy. That is something that I told Toddy. I wish he was here because he could corroborate. It's like being wrapped in a
Yeah.
warm blanket that just came out of the dryer. It's that warm when you walk in. It's just a
Yeah.
different vibe the whole way around, and it's a incredible place to visit, and I can only imagine to train. And you just mentioned something about working the Hawk match, and I need to talk about this real quick. The ladder match. It's the first ever
Mm.
ladder match
Oh,
with Maxx, with Mo, Blanco, Loco, and
yeah.
you were a surprise entrant to that, or a surprise uh, competitor, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, I appreciate you on so many different levels, but at another level, and I don't think I've ever told you this. I think I told Mo this, and I think I told Max this too. Um, I appreciated you before, and I respected you before, and I respected you, and came out of that match with a whole hell of a lot more. And I'm gonna tell you why. There were a couple of spots that were could have been quote unquote high risk, higher risk.
Mm-hmm.
Who took those spots? Kekoa did. Who put his body out there and everybody put their body out there. Let me be fair. Coming off the top of a ladder, that was you. Something that a fraction of an inch that could have gone wrong in either direction. You weren't putting someone in that spot to for that possibility to even happen. It was, I believe, all of these guys' first ladder match, and you were in there to anchor that down, and in a way put yourself in the position that if something could have gone wrong, it would have happened to you. I respect the hell out of you for that because I don't know if a lot of people would have done that. And not to mention, it was the first ladder match, and it came out looking really good in the end. So I want to thank you for that because you didn't have to do that, but you did, and you put yourself in that spot to where, again, if something could have gone wrong, it would have happened to you versus one of them. So I thank you for that.
Oof. You got me emotional there.
I'm keeping it
Um,
real, bro. I don't know what to do. That's how I am.
um, You're, I think, other than the people that are associated with the Hawk, I think you're the only person that noticed and acknowledged that. And you're completely, like because you're outside, and you notice that shows how much, um, you're aware and you can kind of see, what we're doing here. And yeah, that was 100% the call. Um, it was well, I'll say 50%, like it's all me if something goes wrong, and the other 50% was to calm Renee down because she's such a hawk mom, as we call her. And when I was thinking about what we could advertise for that PLE in April, I was like, okay, well, what's like really cool? You know what I mean? Like, what do fans love to see that looks really cool? Well, we don't have a steel cage, so I can't do a steel cage match. And I'm like, ladder matches are cool, and I'm like, oh yeah, we don't have a Money in the Bank match yet, where we don't have a Money in the Bank, contract or anything like that. I'm like, okay, so what if I found your briefcase and we call it the Champions Contract instead of Money in the Bank? Champions Contract winner. Okay, cool. All right, hey Renee, I think we're gonna do a ladder match in April, and she was like, yeah, okay. And I kind of like did one of these, and I'm like, no, we're gonna do a ladder match. And I, at this point, was gonna be like, I'm not involved. Um, but I was obviously going to have my hand in it to make sure, like, hey, we're only going to do things that people are going to be comfortable with and that are going to be safe, obviously, because yeah, these are kids. Like that was Max's like fourth match or something like that at that point, and
Mm-hmm.
he's doing a ladder match. Like, why would I expect someone that's done four matches to do a crazy ladder match? Um, and I was like, that's when I was like, well, what if I'm in it? I'm like, if I'm in it and I can coordinate the whole thing to make sure that they're safe, would that calm you down? And then she was like, I think so. She's like, that would make me feel better. And she has a lot of respect for Blanco. So then that's when I was like, well, what if I put Blanco in it also? And she was like, that would make me feel a lot better. If it was you two at least in there, then I know everything will be fine. I said, okay, bet. So then I took that and I was off and running. And then I pitched it to Max and Mo, and I was like, hey, are you guys in? And they're like, oh, of course. So then it was easy cake after that. And because Max was on tour, that was the tough part also, because like now he's flying in the morning of.
Mm-hmm.
We get one shot to walk through this, to go to be like, hey, this is how we're going to do things. So now I'm like at my desk at work thinking like, okay, well, how can I write out this match? How can I coordinate it to be like, it's either going to be me or Blanco taking the big bumps or being in control of everyone. Like that's why the superplex spot in that
Mm-hmm.
match was me superplexing somebody and Maximo, or I'm sorry, Blanco and Mo on the ground. That's why the frog splash was me jumping, which is exactly what you're calling. The other spot where it got kind of messed up, but me and Blanco on the outside on the big ladder, like that was another, again, us. Like everything else is a lot easier to coordinate. So I wrote out how I thought the match should go, where the big spots were going to be, how we would get there, so on and so forth. So I sent them all like the order and everything, and I was like, "Does this seem right? Like, does this make sense for everybody? Is everyone comfortable with this?" And of course, like they were on board, and then we had the chance to walk through everything, and then it's just me and Blanco just vetting the match essentially, and I really enjoyed it. Like I had the time of my life in there, and they, of course, Max and Mo walk out and they were like, that was so easy. And I'm like, yeah, because wrestling can be easy. It can be easy. And still like people are like, oh man, like that was really great. Like, yeah, it can be easy and great. We just have to know how to do it the right way. And then Renee, of course, like she was fine the whole time. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's another proud moment for me. And that's why, like, when I get that question of like, what's some of your favorite matches? And they want to think like, some of these matches that I've done with WWE or something like that. I'm like, no, it's things like this that just come off so well, and I'm like, oh, I'm proud of that, or I'm proud of this, and I'm proud of that. That nobody would realize.
See, when I usually, if I ask people, what are some of their biggest matches or their dream matches, et cetera, I don't ever look for the big E or anything like. I want indie stuff, because this is where it's at, man. Like I'm telling you, this scene is blowing up everywhere. When you talk about the ladder match, and I look at the ladder match, I didn't know at the time. Of course, I did when I was on my way back to Gainesville. there was a couple of moments at that show for that show. You had the Ivy Mercer spot, which she didn't know the finish. She wins the women's
Yeah,
championship. I got goosebumps. I don't get got I
dude.
looked at my husband and I was like, I have fucking goosebumps right now. I don't get goosebumps. I had goosebumps when that 3 count happened. Reality set in, and I went back and obviously watched the show back now knowing that she didn't know, and you can see it. It's there for like 4 seconds
Mm.
on the screen. In her eyes, she's like, and then it
I
hits.
I instantly cried.
I,
Instantly cried looking through the curtain because when you guys, for everybody that's listening, when you go back and watch it, the roll up happens, the 3 count happens, she lets go, she looks at the ref, she looks around and realizes that like that was what was supposed to happen. Immediately balls, and as soon as she did this and like curled up into a fetal position and started crying, I immediately started crying. I went to the back and I could not hold it together. Like I was crying so hard. And that's the thing that I try to get across to these kids so much. And like we do care so much about what happens like to them, their success, their happiness. Like we care probably too much,
no such thing.
and we can create. I agree, but when we have some of these other students that are having a little bit of trouble, and it's like you don't realize how much we care because this is how much we care of doing things like that. And there's so many more like moments for the rest of the year for anybody that's not watching the Hawk right now. There's so many more moments that are going to happen for the rest of this year that I'm not telling some of these people that they're going to experience this because I want genuine reaction. Because when you think about it this way, if I have a roster like WWE, guys that have been doing this for, a decade or two, these are trained actors, these are trained professionals. I have a class of pretty good trained professionals, right? Like just breaking into that professional aspect. The acting part is almost the hardest part for them because they're still figuring out the wrestling. So trying to combine the two is very hard because they're still figuring out the wrestling. It's usually one or the other. You're a really good actor and wrestling is hard, or you're a really good wrestler and the acting is hard. And then there's those Easter eggs, or those special cases that have both. And usually it's they're good at wrestling, but not in the acting part. So how do I fix that? By making things real so that I get the genuine reaction and they don't have a choice. And then it feels real because it is. And I'm telling you, there's so many more moments the rest of the year that are planned that even the kids don't know about. And I sit in my office every day giddy until that next moment and I go, "Oh, I can't wait till we get to that. That's going to be so fun."
I can only imagine, dude. I'm telling you. Let me come over to chat real quick. We have several questions. Violence achieved 81. Which student, and if you want to answer this, which student has surprised you the most? And it's a broad question because I don't know it's surprised in which way or in what way. But is there a student that has just kind of shocked you? Maybe with how quick they've taken to it.
I'm surprised Matthew Ennis hasn't burned his boots yet. That's probably my number one answer. Um, but all jokes aside, um, I don't think you know what. I'll put it this way. Destin Joanno is that kid, and it's because he's such a young kid
Hmm.
who's getting it, who's slowly picking it up more and more each time. Like there's other people that I'm like, yeah, I think that they're gonna get it, and I didn't think that Destin wasn't gonna get it. I didn't think I didn't think that he was gonna get it as well as he is because prime example of that. that I have with a lot of wrestlers that are morphing into themselves is their vocal ability. That themselves being able to be loud, expressive in the ring. That's very hard for a lot of people because a lot of people are, they're in their shell and they're shy and they're nervous, and I get it, or they feel awkward, or they like, oh my god, this is cringy, blah 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 blah. So Destin doesn't have that problem. And what's crazy is that there are almost 30-year-olds that get in the ring with him, and I'm yelling at them like, be vocal, be vocal, be vocal, be vocal. And they're not. And then Destin gets in there and he tears them apart, and he's 16 years old. And I literally go to them and I'm like, not saying this as a disrespect, but if I ever got showed up by a 16-year-old man, I'd be hot. I would be angry. Like, how are you going to get shown up by a 16-year-old? Like, that's wild to me. So he is probably my most surprising student because he's getting it. He's doing well. Got to slow down by 100 miles an hour, but he's doing well. And he's getting it better than the adults are, and brother is in high school. That's wild.
Senior in high school. I think he just graduated. Maybe either he just graduated or he's going into his
He's a
senior.
junior, I think, this
Junior.
year.
Oh
If I'm
shit. Oh my
Yeah,
god. I'm
he's
aging him
16.
ahead. Oh,
Yeah,
I
he's
thought he was 17. I put him ahead.
no, he's 16.
My god, kid. Yeah, he is one that I've got my own. I'm just sitting back and watching. Matter of fact, I went to the establishment show last weekend to see him and to see Rice Maddox and to see Kid Kuda. Uh, and to Casey Vi. Got to see Vi too. I think that all four of those cats they've all got something in their own way and in their own right. I do want to come over to chat real quick. Maxx Danziger did pop in, said that ladder match is a moment that will
Hmm.
last a lifetime. Or what a ladder match he'll never forget. He said it was a moment. I should say that. And then he said that he was just stopping in to see what the goat was talking about. Obviously referring to you.
Mhm.
Uh, Ennis just said, "Wow." With
Even while he's in Japan, that's crazy.
I know, man. This guy's fucking. I love Maxx
It
Danziger.
don't stop.
That dude's
It
so
don't stop.
great. Let me tell you something. I told Max this too. Uh, when I walked into the Hawk for the first time, this guy walked up to me and shook my hand, and I didn't know how to take that because this should be the other way around. Like I need to come be talking to you guys and shaking your hand. This guy walked up to me and shook my hand. Thank you for coming. Glad to meet you. Hope you enjoy the show. Went on about his business. You want to talk about a class act? That right there is a
It's all
class
culture,
act.
baby.
I'm telling you, and to something that I wanted to touch on, my ADHD kicked in, and that was my fault because I should have hit it when we were there a
No,
second
you're
ago.
good, baby.
When you're talking about the environment that you create at the Hawk, and to students, some of those that may be having some difficulty or may not be having some difficulty. Something that I see is not only are you guys coaching them, and it's all about the atmosphere that you create. Your vets, the guys that have been there, that have been training, that have been greenlit, they're also trying to help these guys along and help them get it and help them understand maybe where they're going wrong here and how you can do something here. Like it's not just it's like that olive, that branch, that the big umbrella, like you guys, the four of you guys, you and Jamie, Renee, and Bobby Fish, and then you got the guys that are underneath you. And you've all trained them the same way. It's a can't miss kind of situation when you look at the Hawk and what is going on
Yeah, I it's what we thrive on. That's what we keep saying. We just got to grind.
there.
As long as these kids are willing to put in the work, the world is at their fingertips when they're at the Hawk.
Well, let me ask you this, and we'll start winding this up and tying a bow on it. I know we've went a little long if I'm not my timing if my time is right, or we may have a few more minutes. I usually ask guys like dream matches and stuff like that. I don't want to ask you that. I want to ask you something that is outside of maybe that box. Where do you see the Hawk in the next 5 years? What kind of plan do you think,
Mm,
you know, obvious, and I'll preface it with this. I think you guys are going to be on the
mm,
forefront of being the next big training facility. Like I think that is, if there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But from you guys'
Yeah.
perspective, where do you guys think you're going to be? And it doesn't have to necessarily be the next 5 years, but what do you think the future holds for you guys?
So we actually all of the coaching staff, and this was before Bobby even came on. It was me, Renee, Nick, and Chris Viso, our production guy. We all went to Top Golf on a Thursday. We all got together and we sat down and we did this kind of like team planning, building, thing. Because Renee and Nick are very corporate. They've been in the corporate world for a long time, so they're like, sometimes you just got to get out of the office. Sometimes you just got to like, be somewhere else that your mind can run a little bit differently. So we went to Top Golf. We had a good time and everything. And one of those was like, where do you see the Hawk in the next 5 years? And Renee, at one point, I remember, I think this was like the start of it. Maybe she had mentioned like, okay, we open up a Hawk in Florida. Okay, then that one's off and running. Then we open one in North Carolina, and then we go to that one and we open it and we get it going. We hire the staff, and then there's that one, and then we open one in Philly, and then we do that one. You know what I mean? And then we just keep opening. I think that was like her goal at the start of it, to almost be like a franchise wrestling school, because that doesn't exist, which would be awesome. And then she's like, basically, your job is you oversee every coach at every school, and you just travel to each one, and that's what you do. And I go, dope. Um, then when we had this meeting particularly, I think that this is a realistic 5 year plan. Um, it's us getting into like 100 square feet facility. I want to have one ring that we don't touch, that's pipe and draped around the entire thing, and that's our production studio. That's where we get all the big lights, the entranceway, and we just keep slowly building that, and that's our TV area. And then even that's an area that indie companies can come and rent out because it's completely blacked out. Like it won't be Hawk branded. You won't see the Hawk. I mean, we'll have those also like when it's our time, but then like if it's completely pipe and draped, you know what I mean? Like we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Other companies can come in and then rent it and then use it for whatever tapings that they want to do, or movies. You know what I mean? But that's our TV area, and then we have two or three more rings where it practices. And then I also want an area where we hire seamstresses, because I want the Hawk to put out gear for the indies, because the problem is with gear is that everyone is unreliable. You go to them and they're like, yeah, it'll be 3 months, and then 7 months later you might get your gear, or like they take half your money and then they give you your gear and it's like, oh man, that's not at all what I ordered. Like the gear, the
Streamlining it a little
seamstress
bit.
area is, it's such a market that needs to be tapped in. And if we put our stamp on it, if we're like, if you order from us and we approve your order, you get this within X amount of days, no ifs, ands, or buts, like, or your money back. Like that's a guarantee. And then we just have a staff of seamstresses that just put out gear to the indies. So then we're essentially like a main event gear. But the difference is, and it's no disrespect to them, but we don't put WWE first. Like we'll be fine with the indies. Like we don't need guys from WWE. Like I understand that, because if guys from WWE wear your stuff, it's like, oh, look at all these. But there's already companies that are taking care of WWE. We can completely take care of the indies and make a killing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And still make the same money. But that's something that I'm like, I would love to get gear made by some of these people, but I know I'm always going to be put on the back burner, so I never order from them, because I'm not trying to not know when my gear's coming in. Um, so that's another aspect. Like there's just so many aspects of this building that I want, that it's like we're just the PC. We are the PC of the indies. PC, and then the feeder system to WWE, or the feeder system to whoever. Like that I think is a realistic avenue in the next 5 years.
I love hearing it. I think that it is such an attainable situation. Uh, Again, as we're talking about the Hawk, and we've talked about you guys and what you guys have going on, something that we didn't touch on a whole lot of, the production team that's there. Can we take a few minutes? Can we talk about who's doing the production? Because again,
Yeah.
I have gone to several different shows, and this is fully produced. There's a guy that is directing. This guy's working his ass off. I don't know his name, but if he's watching this, or if he
Mhm.
does watch this, thank you because you're putting in some fucking work. And who is getting your shows together? I'm assuming it's the same company or the same
Oh,
people. No?
it's all students.
Oh, it's all
It's
students.
all students.
Everybody that's
Yes.
putting this together is students. See, I knew that there was a lot of grappling from students, but in
Yes.
different areas. I didn't know that they were student producing too. So whoever's doing that,
So
go ahead.
it's Chris Viso is our like floor director, we'll say. That's the gentleman that you're referring to, which yes, he does a hell of a job, and he puts together all the production equipment. Like he gets everything set up for us. But then all of the jobs are all the students, and then it's me producing the shows. It's me behind the curtain, giving out seg times, making sure that the show is running the way that it needs to. So I'm, the Paul Levesque of the Hawk, and he's the Stan. Like I guess WWE doesn't have that one specifically, but um, well, whoever's no, I'm not sure, but anywho, so it's me and him, and then all the jobs are going to the kids. So whoever's on camera, those are students. Whoever's on music, commentary, like those are all students. And the reason that I have these students on there is because they're the ones that aren't particularly ready to be on the student shows yet. They might have just gotten there, or they're working their way up of their experience level. But the reason that we have students doing all of those jobs is because that's how you learn the respect of that job, and then that's how you learn like that other aspect of like, man, when I was on camera, like I remember filming and I was trying to get all these great shots, but no wrestler was looking at the camera. So now when it's your time to wrestle, boom, you're already thinking about it. You're like, look at the camera because I have that experience on the other side of the lens. When they're refereeing, like, oh man, like I remember, I wish someone would have told me this, or you know what I mean? Like now you can help out the referee. On commentary, when you're on commentary, you quickly learn like there's not a lot, like you need a lot of information because it's hard to just talk. It's
Mm.
hard to just carry a conversation when you're on commentary. So now you're like, man, I wish the wrestlers would give me more notes so that I could put them over on commentary. So now when you work for a company like that, you're like, boom, I have all of these notes about my character. Here you go, Mr. Commentator. And they're going to go, thank you so much. Thank you for making my job easier. Ring announcing, music, all of that stuff. I'm like, you have a respect for each position. And that is why the handshake rule exists, because you're supposed to have a line of respect for everybody that comes to these shows. Because if we didn't have one of those people, then the show is screwed up. If we don't have a good ring announcer, we're like, oh man, this kind of sucks. If the music is off, oh man, that kind of sucks. If the lights are off, if the timing is off for those things, like you take out one of these parts, people realize, oh, I guess that job is really important. And they might not realize that if you just become a wrestler and then you don't know because you've never tried it. So that's why we rotate all of those jobs, and everybody has to do each job at some point so that you understand how hard it is. You have a new respect level for them, and it makes your job a lot easier when you get there. So that is our production team, all of the students.
I love it. I think that into something else like wrestling, everybody's role is critical. Right? Something that we say on the channel, from production to commentary to ring announcing to everybody, lights, front of the house, back of the house. If you don't dabble and you don't try, you may find something that draws you in more. Like, case in point, for me as an example, I'm not a ring guy anymore. I get it. I am more of a creative guy. I'm more of a behind the scenes guy. I'm more of a, managerial role, as you and I have talked about. 'Cause I told you, I fucking say it out loud. I'm just buying a house, and when I do, I'm coming down to the Hawk to go through manager school again. It's been 20 fucking years, but there's so many roles, and all of them are crucial. And have you had a student that maybe was coming as a talent, and stumble into one of a different role, and say, shit, I like announcing. For some reason I like that better. Or has anything transpired like that student wise where they have found their niche or found their another niche that's outside of the
Yeah, the first student that comes off the top of my head. His name is Liam. He came into the Hawk towards the end of last year. He has been in acting for quite some time, and um, we had him as the ring announcer on Legacy, and he did a great job. And then him personally, not to dive into his his health history by any means, but he had some health concerns when it comes to being able to be a wrestler, and he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to do it. And then he found a love for ring announcing, and he was like, maybe I just go down that road, so I don't have to worry about these health conditions. And then I basically, when he asked me at one point, he was like, what does that look like? Like, how do I keep going into the Hawk and become a ring announcer? And I was like, brother, you don't need the Hawk if you want to be a ring announcer. Like, you're already a ring announcer. You're already an entertainment talent. Take that reel that we take, make a reel tape of yourself, send it to companies, and then go from there. You don't need to know anything about wrestling other than just having the better understanding of how to announce, and you just keep getting better, keep getting your reps. But I'm like, but you don't need training. Like, you're already killing it. You already have that idea. So I don't know if he's going to continue to pursue that. I think he'd like to. I don't know if he's doing that currently, but that's the first person that I thought of off the top of my head of like trying something, and they're going like, oh man, like I'm kind of good at this, and I'm like, okay, then go kill it.
All right, I'm gonna put you on the spot with this one because usually I ask guys, some names of people that we should be watching, but I'm gonna change the script a little bit because there are plenty of talents that I have seen on the HOC and on the
Mm.
monthly shows. Are there any I'm gonna say diamonds in the rough because everybody's got something because there's something there with just about everybody that walks through that curtain. Who are maybe some people in the future that I might be able to look forward to seeing uh, that may be going through some training now or maybe going through the process now. Any future highlights that you might want to give me some nuggets on?
I don't know. Um, and I only say that because with the experience of the wrestling industry that you have, that this business is a revolving door.
Hmm.
Um, and on top of it, unfortunately, like, there's a lot of negativity with the independents in general, or just wrestling in general, where like some people come in and then you realize like, they're kind of a bad apple. Like, they're kind of a piece of crap. Like, I don't think that they belong in this industry, or like, and they're kind of a terrible human. So there's been a lot of people that I've been like, man, I think they're going to be something, or I think that person's going to be something, man. Like, I think they're going to be a future star, or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then like things have gone in the opposite direction. And I'm not saying like, oh, I don't know who to name because I don't want to be wrong. It's not that in general, but there's a quote that I tell the kids all the time, and I say, prove me wrong. And the reason that I say prove me wrong is because that there's probably a lot more people that I'm not sure what their future looks like in comparison to people that I can say are diamonds in the rough. And I tell them, I'm like, but prove me wrong, please. Like, I want you to. Like, I don't want to be right a lot of times. A lot of being right isn't the best, when you're in my position sometimes. Because there's people that you just don't really want to put your chips in, and you're like, man, I don't want to feel that way, but also there's a reason why I feel that way. But again, I go, prove me wrong. So I don't want to put anybody over as far as I think that they're diamonds in the rough, but I want to be more realistic of like, hey, if you're hearing these words and you feel that you are that diamond in the rough, and you haven't been getting enough of people telling you that you are the diamond in the rough, and you believe that you are, or you can be, then go prove the world wrong. Go prove to the industry that you are going to be that person. Because just like we talked about before the podcast even started, the people that look like they're going to be future stars, there's more than enough people talking about them. If there's not enough people talking about you, then go change that and make sure that people are talking about you.
Only you can do that. There's only one person who
Mhm.
can make that happen. Uh, Coach
Amen.
K, man, this has been fantastic to sit down and chat with you tonight, man. I know we've kind of just scratched the surface on your wrestling in general, but was so stoked to really get in here and talk a little bit about the HOC, your health, finding out where you're at with all that. It has been a honor and a privilege, sir. Is there anything that you would like to plug? Is there anything you've got coming up? Is there anything out there that you want to, you know, that you want to throw out as we're on the way out?
So I usually end pretty much every podcast or any interview that I've ever done is by thanking everybody because I'm definitely a person of like, you never know when your last time is. We never know when our last day on this earth is. And especially with what I've been going through recently, I was like, well, that day might be closer than I anticipated. And luckily it wasn't. But I want to thank anybody that's ever supported me. I want to thank anybody that has ever paid a ticket to see me, or bought a T-shirt or anything like that, or watched the Hawk. Just sharing a link, anything like any type of support that you've ever given me, I truly appreciate it. And that goes with beyond saying of this GoFundMe. Um, recently that my wife put out, like the overwhelming support has actually been very uncomfortable for me. And that is, again, just another blessing that I can't thank y'all enough for. Um, I There's nothing specifically that I want to plug. For anybody that doesn't follow me on social media, um, I always put out where I'm going to be, when I'm going to be there. Couple other things that I'll definitely talk about. Again, if you're not watching the Hawk shows, um, we're in the we're in the back nine of this 18 hole year, and there's just so much excitement that's going to be on the way for the rest of the year. So if you're not tuned in and you're not caught up to date with these storylines of what we're doing, then I highly advise you catch up now because the rest of the year is going to be a roller coaster. Um, and I would hope that maybe after uh, future PLEs that we can come back and we can circle and we can talk about it because I can talk to you all day about these moments that we create and what goes on behind the scenes because I think that that's what's missed the most and I love that WWE does it when it comes to these press conferences that they do post PLEs because um, there is so much that goes into these shows and there's a lot of the fun aspect that drives people's passions and these real genuine authentic reactions that I would love to talk about all day with you guys because I'll put these kids over any day of the week. So I know this isn't going to be the last time that you and I are going to speak, but I would love to come on in the future again and talk about what we're doing over there because it again, if you're not watching it, you better be because it's a fun ride.
Don't, hey, first of all, don't threaten me with a good time. I can sit down and chat with you about anything, hawk related, whatever. That we can make that happen, no problem. You just say when. That's like that the infamous Val
Yes,
Kilmer
sir.
tombstone. Say when. And I know that Toddy would enjoy it. I know Toddy's going to be with me in July, or excuse me, August, for the next PLE. Man, we didn't even get a chance to talk about the ID show you got coming up that you're a part of. Do you want
Brother,
to?
there's so much too. Yeah, so for anybody, because you're bringing it up, so WWE ID Showcase event is actually going to be happening at the Hawk on July 19th. I'm not going to be there specifically, but a lot of the ID guys, of course, are going to be there. Again, just want to throw it out there of like, oh, he was plugging it. I'm like, yeah, it's at the Hawk, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be there. I have my own event.
Hmm.
I have to go defend my Pride of Wrestling Heavyweight Championship over in Tampa against Mr. Salazar. So I am booked that night. I am busy. But we'll see if there's going to be more WWE ID showcase shows at the Hog. It seems like that might be a thing. We'll see how this first one goes, but yeah, man, we got tons more to talk about.
Absolutely. Listen, guys, the easiest way that
I'm
you
going to
can
be the third co-host. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to be the third co-host.
I'm for it, bro. Like if we need to just do like set up a once a month and just do the HOC, we'll just be the official HOC podcast. That's what that'll be.
Figure it out.
We can sit down and talk about all things HOC. And I know that I bet you Toddy would shit a golden brick. And I know that it killed him that he wasn't able to be here. Mother Nature
I
just
know.
was not on his side. But he will definitely be back for the next one. And I know he said something when I talked to him before we came on the air, before I called you, that he was think he's going to try and get down there for the July show as well. So we're going to definitely try and do our part to support wherever we can. And speaking of support, the easiest way that you can, guys, it's super simple, is to like, share, follow, subscribe where you can. And Kekoa's case, he keeps it pretty simple. It's Kekoa Pro over on Instagram, and I believe it's over on X that way too. But if it's not, Linktree is the way to go. Right there on the screen, linktr.ee /Kekoa Pro has everything Kekoa, from merch to HOC, everything and anything that you want to know, it's going to fucking be there. And hit that subscribe button on
Hmm.
every platform that you can. HOC, link, if you're watching over on YouTube, go down below. It'll be linked right there. Click it, hit the subscribe button. You're definitely going to stay tuned to what they have going on and go catch some of the previous shows and get yourself caught up. Because as Coach K has said, this has been a wild first 6 months. It seems like we're on a roller coaster ride for the rest of the year. Guys,
Can't
and
wait.
I can't either. And if you have not done so, head us up on all forms of social media. It's going to be in the video description down below. For Mr. Coach K, again, sir, appreciate your time this evening and cannot wait to circle back around with you and chat more about what you guys have going on.
Yes, sir.
Guys, we appreciate it. For Kekoa, I'm Chris Page. We'll see you next time.